Hey everybody, it's Muscle Car Campy and we're back today and we're going to a time where a lot of people don't want to go, and that's the Malaise era. We've got a 1980 Camaro Z28 for you, and we really dig this car. Original paint, original decals, original striping. The Malaise era gets a bad reputation, but was it so terrible? Let's be honest. You could buy a 68 Z28 for about $1,400. You could buy a big block Chevelle for a little more than that. It was an interesting era. In the new car department, these cars were coming out. There was a little bit of hope on the horizon. 77, the Camaro, the Z28 came back. 1980, you got a little more horsepower, 15 horsepower more than you got in 1979. It being the disco era, you got a lot more flash for your money. You got stripes, you got the deep front air dam. There's a lot of cool stories about these cars, and we're going to tell them to you right now. Jerry Palmer, who's the assistant chief designer of the Camaro back in the day, said this style of nose, soft rubber bumper in the front and the rear, was supposed to appear on the Camaro in 1974. It was shot down by none other than John Zachary DeLorean. Believe it or not, he wanted the Camaro to be a little bit less expensive than the Firebird. He wanted it to look a little less expensive. Now, we're not sure if this was him showing favoritism to Firebird before he left, or if he was really in just this crazy cost-cutting mode at Chevrolet. But look at how sleek this looks compared to those aluminum bumper cars. It's soft all the way across. You've got the nice aerodynamic nose. The windshield and the rear window on these cars were trimmed in flat black paint. As we said, this car has never been restored, so there is a couple of marks on here, but we think it's okay. Again, you could see a couple of imperfections in the trim around the windshield. We say, who cares? And again, here we have the air induction flapping doors on the back. They stay closed during normal operation, and when you floor the throttle, they pop open and add cold air to the carburetor. This was also the last year before the CCC carburation, the computer-controlled carb, came into play. Inside the interior is almost as original as the rest of the car. You've got some aftermarket floor mats in there. You've got a Jensen AM/FM cassette player with triaxial speakers on the package shelf. Like we said, it's definitely the early 80s in this car. We definitely like all the gauges, and the corner gauges are tilted towards the driver, but when you're driving, they're definitely blocked by parts of the steering wheel. Standard with the Z28 was the LM1 350 engine and the Borg-Warner T10 transmission. It was a 4-speed, which is very cool because you could not get a 4-speed in the Trans Am in 1980. No V8 Firebirds in 80 got the 4-speed. Also gone for the Firebird were the 400 cubic inch engines, and that really hurt performance. But this car, we love the red. Love the red door panels. These doors weigh about 6,000 pounds each. They're really hard to close. You got to really shove them. Car and Driver was one of the few magazines that tested an 80 Z28. While it did not tear up the test track, it ran a 16.4 at 86 miles per hour, enough to smoke a Trans Am of the same vintage. 1980 was the year that the TA not only lost its 400 V8, but you couldn't even get a V8 Firebird that year with a manual transmission. There's your factory air cleaner. It seals the hood to the scoop. Solenoid activated. When you floored it, 2 flapper doors opened, feeding cold air to the 350. When Rick bought the car, it had a 383 under the hood. Strangely enough, the guy kept the heads and intake manifold and carburetor stock, so you got a lot more torque. And I'm sure when the previous owner removed the catalytic converter, that probably added 20-30 horsepower to the equation. A lot of people don't realize something very cool on these cars. They didn't come with mufflers from the factory. You had manifolds, you had a catalytic converter, and you had 2 resonators that flowed into the tailpipes. So you got a really unique sound with these cars. It really burbled nice. There was some hope that during the Malaise era, you're actually going to get some performance at some point. All right, we're with owner Rick Piccione right now in his 1980 Z28. It's stock appearing. It's an original unrestored car. It does have Hotchkiss suspension. It does have a 383 under the hood, and it really has that cool dual flapper cold air hood that was brand new for 1980. Very good stuff. Rick, tell us a little about this car. Where did you find it?
You know, it was in Pennsylvania, and a buddy of mine in Worcester, Ohio, went there and bought it, and he had it, and he's a flipper, and had the car posted. I looked at the pictures and that, and I said, man, that looks like something that I could really have fun with. And I was looking for a car to bring down here to Florida, so I went and looked at it. And I mean, I couldn't believe how clean it was underneath. You could wax the floor pans underneath. Wow. It's an unrestored car. It had 63,000 miles on it. We put a 383 stroker in it with the Hotchkiss suspension. It handles like a brand, you know, I mean.
Yeah, better than new.
You touch the wheel and it's right there. And you've got the power.
Mm-hmm. That's very cool. And what I dig about it the most, it's an actual 4-speed car, you know? You got the Borg Warner T10 with the LM1 350. That was a really cool thing to have. In fact, 1980 was the first year you couldn't get a Trans Am with a stick shift. So this is really cool that you're one-upping all the Trans Am guys with this car because you got a 4-speed. And these cars came with, as we know, 11-inch front discs, 9-inch drums in the back. But I just love sitting in here. I feel like it's like I'm back to my freshman year in college.
Oh, I enjoy driving it, and it gets a lot of looks when I take it out. I get a lot of compliments, even from the old guys. It's just a fun car to drive and enjoy.
Well, and it is beautiful, black with red, the classic muscle car interior color. That you bought new. So you're kind of like the United Nations of car lovers here. You don't really seem to have do you have a preference? Do you prefer Chevys, or do you just whatever's cool is what you want?
You know, Jim, at one time I had 17 classics. I had a different convertible for every day of the week, and they were all Ford products. In the late 90s and early 2000s, I started looking more at the hobby as an investment, so I started getting rid of my Ford products and went to more GM muscle cars. Mm-hmm. And that's when I got into Chevelles, Camaros. I bought a 67 Camaro in Riverside, California in 2014, and the guy bought it new, and 3 or 4 years later took it to the dealership and put a 512 block, a 69 427 in it, a Muncie 4-speed, a 12 bolt, and I give that car to my son. But I have found out as an enjoyment and investment that for the most part the GM cars have appreciated and steadily hold their value.
Now you still have a 360 horse 66 Chevelle SS 396.
Yes.
Do you still have your 67 Chevelle?
Yes, the 67 Chevelle's got a built for a 70 high performance 454 in it.
Okay.
That's one of my favorite cars. It's black on black. It's an Ohio car, all original sheet metal, original interior, and that's another one of my favorite cars to drive.
Wow. What's next? What are you going to buy next? Do you know? Or are you going to just try to get rid of stuff now?
No. You know what? I love cars, and I probably only have a few more years to enjoy the 4-speeds and the muscle cars. like I do today. But no, I'm a car guy. If a deal comes along, I'll buy it. Some of them I keep, some of them I flip.
No car left behind, huh?
You know, Jim, it's funny you asked me about the cars. I talked to 2 years ago. I started writing down on my computer desk every car I've owned in my life, and I got over 75. And since then, I've remembered of other cars I've owned.
Oh my, yeah. I think we all have that list on our computer. Mine is certainly not as vast
But
as that.
I've been fortunate. I've owned a lot of cars.